tutorial, we are going to create tic-tac-toe game using Angular2 and Angular Material. Tic-tac-toe, also known as noughts and crosses, is a game for two players X and O who take turns marking the spaces in 3x3 grid. The player who succeeds in placing the three of their marks in a horizontal, vertical, or a diagonal wins the game. This tutorial lets you familiarize with Angular2 and Angular Material. We are going to use the official Angular CLI tool to generate boilerplate code. You can find the live demo of this tutorial on this link. On this link. You can see how this game works, and at the end of the tutorial, what you will get. On the left side, we have the actual game, and on the right side, we have the scores. So for example, if you complete the game in draw, it counts the score in draw. And if computer wins by chance, then it counts the score in the computer. And similarly, it counts the score in your table row. You can find the source code of this game on our GitHub link here. You can also get the step-by-step guide on my website using this link. And you can copy and paste the code from here. This tutorial is targeted for people familiar with JavaScript and HTML, CSS. You will also need Node.js and npm installed already on your computer. If you want to verify whether you have the latest versions of npm and Node, you can do that by typing Node and version. If you get version of Node greater than 4, then you're good to go. Similarly, you can get the version of npm by typing npm version. If you get the npm version 3, then you are good to go. The tutorial by installing Angular CLI. Angular CLI is the most effective and easy way to get us started. You can download the tool using npm/g install Angular CLI and copy this command into terminal or the command prompt. You can paste it and it will install the app. Since on my computer it is already installed, so I will skip this step. Once ng-cli is installed globally on your computer, you can verify by typing ng help. If it gives you this following information, then I think you have installed the ng-cli tool correctly. We will now proceed and create a new project. In order to create a new project, you have to type ng new. Project name, in our case it will be tic-tac-toe -style SCSS. This will install all the boilerplate code needed for our app. It will take few minutes to complete. Once it is complete, you will be able to run the app in development mode. So now let's wait and see once it finishes. So our project is created successfully. Now we can run ng-serve command. We have to first cd into our folder that is created, tic-tac-toe. Once you do that, you have to type ng-serve. ng-serve will initiate the application in development mode. You can view the development mode application via this URL. You type this in your browser and it will open up your app. If it shows app works, then you have installed the boilerplate code successfully. Now let's dive into the source folder of our application, newly created application, and see what's the code structure look like. I will drag this tic-tac-toe folder in my Sublime text editor and browse the files from here. In the source folder, you will find a file named index.html. Index.html is a standard HTML5 file which have all the standard code except for the space href and this app root. Base href is used by Angular for routing purposes, and app root is an app component which we will discuss later. Now let's jump to app folder, and we will see several files over here. We will first see app.module file. App.module file consists of all the necessary files required by your application. It consists of this four metadata: declaration, imports, providers, and bootstrap. Declaration consists of all the components that is required by your application. Our game consists of only single component, that is app component, which will act as our game board. But if your application have multiple components, the ng-CLI tool will automatically add those components in declaration. Imports consist of routes and modules, and bootstrap consists of all the components required to get our app started initially. That is the first page of the app. Since we only have a single component, so we just have added app component in it. In case you add more services or pipes or any component, the ng-CLI tool will automatically update this file. Now let's move to app component file and see what that file consists of. The structure of this file is very similar to app module, but instead of ng module, we have component. The most important part is the value of these metadata. We have selector over here, template URL, style URL. Selector is the name of the component. Remember that we had app root in index.html here. Template URL, this is where HTML code is. Let me show you what app.component HTML consists of. Right now it has h1, and in it consists of title and h1. So if you load the application in browser, you will see that it has h1 tag in it and the title. The style URL, you can have the style that only applies to this component. This is pretty neat. You can change the style with confidence, knowing that it won't bleed to other parts of the website. Or if you don't have any specific style specific to this component, you can simply comment this line. Inside the app component class, you can define variables. Right now we have a single variable named title, and its value is app work. Let's change it to tic-tac-toe and see how it looks. We will hit save and we will switch to browser. See, the value got changed. How our application will look like. This is it's a mock-up, how our application will work. Our application will consist of a single component named app component, which will act as our game board. It will have 9 blocks and 2 players. Each block will be handled by a helper class called block, and each player will have a helper class called player. And our game board will actively connect with our game service, which will help us managing players' score, draw score, which player, it will tell the game board which player's turn it is, and it will tell the game board that which blocks are free and which are not free. In Angular 2 apps, service plays a major role. Service is simply a JavaScript function that consists of associated properties and methods that can be included into Angular components. The good part about the services is that they are reusable. So for example, if there are two components, they can use the services data and methods without issues. So the services methods and the properties are reusable. Install Bootstrap in our application. Bootstrap, this step is optional, but we will use Bootstrap to make our app looks nicer and persistent across all the screen sizes. If anyone don't know about Bootstrap, Bootstrap provides HTML, CSS, and JavaScript framework for developing responsive projects on the web. It's very popular. If you haven't tried it, you must check it out on your website. So in order to set up Bootstrap, we will stop the ng-serve process by pressing Ctrl+C. This will stop the process, and then we will type npm install ng2 bootstrap space bootstrap, and we will save this file. We'll save these two extensions in the package.json files. Once we will hit enter, it will install and set up all the necessary Bootstrap files in our application. Now we will jump to our files and we will open up Angular CLI JSON file. Inside the styles object, we will add this. So every time when the application is built, the Bootstrap files will automatically get added. Material. In order to set up Angular Material, we will type npm install space @angular -material. This will install the Angular Material. If you don't know about Angular Material, let me show you a quick demo. How it works. You will type in your browser material.angular.io. It will open up the Materials app, and you will find the components of it. It consists of basically comprehensive modern UI components that work across the web, mobile, and desktop. So it's very convenient. So let's check out some components. See, the UI looks very clean. If you go to the slide toggle, you will see the modern UI components available. So you don't have to type in code or using CSS to generate this. It will be automatically generated for you by Angular Material. In our application, we will use only two components. One is the snack bar, which we will use to tell the player whenever his turn is and whenever the game is over or dropped. And the other thing we will use is the grid layout, which we will use to draw the tic-tac layout grid. So let me see if installed. Yeah, it is set up correctly. We'll open Angular CLI.json file and add material style sheet under the styles object. We have selected deep amber CSS file, that is the skin, but you can select other skins as well. You can just go to Materials website and you can find the other themes available there. Once you save the file, you need to open appmodule.ts file, and in it, you first have to import material module. This material module will be used for triggering the objects in the snake bar object that we will use for notifying the user that the game is drawn or something. Then we will add this under inputs. Once you save that, you will see that the output is looking good. We just have to run ng-serve again. Once that is built, you will see that the application started to shape up with all the files necessary loaded. You will see that the tic-tac-toe font has been updated. This is because the bootstrap has been loaded by the application and also the Angular CSS files. Now we will proceed and start coding the classes, the helper classes that we needed for our app. Now we will add two helper classes, block and player, to our application. In order to do that, we'll go to the app folder and we'll add new file, block.ts. In block.ts, we will create a class, export class block, and in it we will have three variables. One is free, that will tell the application whether the block is free or occupied. By default, it will be free. It will have two other values. Value that will consist of either the block has a cross value or a tick value. By default, the value of the block will be blank. It will have two values, cross and tick. Then the block will have a symbol. It will be either a done symbol or a close symbol. By default, it will be none. In our class, there will be a method that will set the value of the block. It will simply change the value to the signed value and also change the symbol of the block based on the values. If the value is tick, it will set the symbol as done. Otherwise, it will set the symbol as close. Now we will add our player class. We will simply add a new file with name player.ts. Then we will create a new class named player. Make it capital P. And then we will add two values, bot, which will be an indicator whether this is a computer player or it is an actual player. By default, we have set the bot value as true, and we will add another variable named score, which we will use to add the score of the user, the number of matches that user have won. And in this class we will have a method that will update the score. It will just simply add the score to the total. Oops. And it will also return the score, the final score. So we have added the two helper classes. Now we will create the app component. To app component file, we will first see what we want to create. So we want to create a container for our game, on which on the left side we will have the 9 blocks, and on the right side we will show the score. So first we will jump to app-component.html5 and create our container, bootstrap container, and then we will add 2 columns to it. One which will be first one for our game block, and the second one for our score. So I will just quickly copy it and say score. game will come here. Let's hit save and see our game. So we have created a container, and on the right side we will have some text for the game, and to the right we will have our score. Create a new service named game. In order to do that, we will open a new terminal window, and I will cd to our application folder. Then I will type ng-cli service. G is for generate, short form, and our service name. Our service name will be game. So once I hit enter, it will generate the game service files for me. Now I will jump to games. Now I will have to add the game, the game service as a provider in our app component class. In order to do that, I will add providers, and then in long brackets I will add game. We'll go to game service and copy the game service back, and we will add this over here. And we have to also import the game service file in this app component file. So in order to do that, we will do import game service from game.service. Okay, so now our app component is using the game services. In the game services, we will define several methods and several variables that will be used by our app component file, which will act as our game board. So let's first start coding game services file. For game services class, we will have several variables. First of it is players. That will consist of all the players. Sorry, we'll have to move these variables outside of the constructor. Then we will have turn, which player's turn it is. So since there will be two players, so the turn will be either of 0, that is player 1, and of 1, that is of bot. So by default, the value will be 0, that is player 1's turn. And then we will also count the draw score. By default, as usual, it will be 0, and once the game continues, the draw count will increase. Also, we will have blocks, since we will have 9 blocks, and this blocks variable will consist of block class list, and then we will have a variable that will keep account of number of blocks remaining that are free. So in case of a draw, the free remaining blocks will be 0, and in case of a new match it will be 9. So by default we have set it as 9. Our constructor, let's first add a new method which will be which will initialize all the blocks. So in case of a new game, it will create blocks for us. So in order to start it, we will first set it as blank, and then we will run a for loop, which will run from I equals to 1 to I equals to 9. Okay. We will create a block, new block. We forgot to add, we forgot to import the block class from our helper class, so we will add it here from block. Okay. So, so we are basically adding 9 blocks, and each block will have free value by default, so they will be free by default, and then their value would be none, and their symbol will be none as well by default. Then we will push this block that is newly created to our blocks object. This blocks, and then we will add a init players method, which will initialize the players for us. So like we initialize the blocks, we will initialize the players. So in order to do that, it will be this.players equals to empty, and then we will add player1, where player1 equals to new player. We'll have to similarly import the players class. It was player, so new player, and since player1 will not be a bot, so we will set the bot as false for player1, and for player2, which will be our bot, we will just initialize the player2 class, so it will be player. Then we will push these two players that we have created to our to our players list. So we'll just push player1 and dust.players.push player2. So basically we added two methods, initialize blocks and initialize player. We will add these two methods to our constructor, so whenever the service is called by the app component, it will run these two methods, init blocks and initialize players. Okay, so our services have created the blocks and the players. So now what we will do is, inside our app component, we will import these in order to do that, we will add we will inject the game services in our app component class. But it is done via adding a constructor method inside the class and then injecting it like this. So our GS will have the game services class. We will set this GS as a public method, so that every method in this app component class can utilize this variable, this.gs. Okay, so now we will go to our app component file and we will add the necessary code to show our blocks. We will add code to our app component.html file, but before we do that, we will go to index.html and we'll add another CSS file that is used for icons. So I have imported material icons file from Google APIs. So that will help us for creating the right and the cross on the app. So we will switch back to our app component.html file, and then we will add the necessary code required to draw all the blocks on our app, the 9 blocks, and we will do the necessary action then. So I will quickly copy and code the code, and I will explain how it is working. So basically I have added a wrapper called game area, and in it I have added 9 grids. Each grid will have 3 columns, so basically it is a 3 by 3 grid, and in materials, Angular Material, the HTML5 tag for adding the grid tile is md-grid tile, and I have run a for loop so that it runs 9 times, and then I have added a click function, so that whenever the player would click on the tile, it will do the necessary action. So let's add it inside our app component, this click event. In order to add a click event, we just simply add player click, and we'll add the I, that is the name of the block that is clicked. 1 2 3 4 5 6. We will just simply add here an alert event, alert I, and we will hit save, and we will also save this file, and we will jump to our application and see nothing is showing up, and we'll see what's the problem here. So it's loading correctly. It's saying that the player is not defined. Let's now jump back to okay, here is the problem. So we have used player instead of player one. That will solve the problem. And then you see that the code is running without any error. So we will see if our ng-grid is appearing or not. So ng-grid, one, two, three, four. So we have like 9 grids appearing. We just have to add some CSS classes now, so that each grid on each grid right and bottom a line appears. So in order to do that, we will jump to our style.css file and add the style in that file. So I will quickly add the necessary styles in it. So this is what it's doing. So in the second child, fifth child, and eighth child, it is adding border to the left and right, so the middle elements. And to the fourth, fifth, and sixth classes, it is adding the border to the top and the bottom. And for the tick, it is adding a green color, and for the cross, it is adding red color. So let's save the file and jump to our and see. So basically what we have done is here 2, 5th, and 8th we have added border left and right. So 2nd, 5th, and 8th we have added border right and border left and border right. And to our 4th, 5th, and 6th block, that is 4th, 5th, and 6th, we have added border top and border bottom. Okay, so we have our our grid set up. Now we will move forward and add we will click on any of the block and see whether the alert event is occurring or not. So when we click, it says 0, 1, 2. So it's working good. We will now proceed further and add the code to the player turn method, and so that whenever the player clicks, it will add the tick in here. So we will do that now. What we will first do here is we will add some code that will simply add the cross or tick. So in our game.service file, we have added a variable named turn, which identifies which player's turn it is. So using that, we will first find out whether which player turn is it. So if it is first player turn, it will add to this block the value of tick. But in case of other players or the bot turn, it will add a cross. So let's save it and check whether it is adding the tick or not. So yes, it is adding the tick, but the problem is that it is only adding ticks, but the computer, the bot, is not playing with us. So first of all, we will add a file name change turn. The primary function of this change turn class will be to change the turn from bot to player and from player to bot. So in order to change the turn, we will first add a into game services class and add a method called change turn in it, and that's primary function will be to to change the turn from 0 to 1. So if this turn equals to 0, it will set the value as 1, otherwise it will change the value to 0, right? Okay, so once you save that, what we will do is that in here we will hit and in the app component class we will also added the change turn method, and in it we have we will just simply first trigger the game services change turn event, and then we will evaluate whether if it's turn of bot. In case of bot turn, it will do the bot turn. So we will add a method called bot turn here. And it will just simply trigger bot turn. Okay, and then we will hit save, and then we will see. So once I click this, it's now the bot's turn, but it is not triggering right now because we have to add the instance of it here. So after the player click, it will trigger change turn. Change turn will trigger the game service change turn, and then it will trigger, and it will then run bot turn. We'll hit save and see whether it's working or not. So we'll refresh the page and then we'll get this. So it's trigger bot turn. So once we click it, it asks bots to do the turn. So now we will add some code that will in case of bot turn, we need some sort of AI that back will evaluate whether the player is making some sort of a pattern, and it will block that pattern, and similarly it will, based on the AI, it will evaluate the best move to win the game. So we will add some code in our game services class now, some methods that will evaluate the bot turn. Bot AI, I will add some classes in or some methods in our game services class. So I will quickly copy paste the code, and then I will explain what each method do. So I will paste it now. So the first method that is figure bot work. It is our main method. It will evaluate whether if the bot is about to complete a set. If it is, it will put the cross in the right position and completes the set and win the game. The second function is block enemy attempt complete set. The primary function of this function is that it checks whether in case of for example this the user is about to complete a set, it will put the cross in such a way that the opposite player is not able to win. So for example, in this case the set is about to complete of the player, so it will add the cross in the right position so that the player doesn't win the game. So the primary function of the block enemy attempt complete set is that it will add the cross in a position that the player doesn't win the game. In case, for example, there is no block set that is completing, and there is no set that is about to be completed by the opposite player. If both the conditions are not both the conditions are not true, it will randomly select any block and put the cross in it. So in the start of the game, when for example player 1 has just put a tick in the any block, it will just select any randomly select any block and add a tick to it. So let's see the get completing set code. So as I mentioned, it just finds the blocks that are the blocks that are about to complete the part that are about to complete the set and put the cross in that position. So for example, in this case, it will add the cross in between so that it wins the game. For block enemy attempt set, it will cancel out any enemy set that is about to complete so that the opposite player doesn't win the game. And then we have a function named block set complete. It will be used by the game to track the completing set. So for example, if if the user make 3 block set diagonally, it will check whether any of the set of the player 1 or player 2 is about to complete. If in the case if it is completing, it will declare player 1 or computer bot as a winner. So the code is simple. Now we will add once we have added these methods in our game services, we will now jump to our app component class and add the necessary code in our player click, bot turn, and change turn methods so that it can utilize the bot AI and make the moves. Play bot turn method. So first of all, we will check that whether the free blocks are available. In case if there is no free blocks available, we will just hit return and there will be no bot turn. In case that there are free blocks available, then we will make the bot move. So we will first figure out the bot move that we have coded. Figure bot move. So basically we are calling the figure bot move function that will evaluate the bot move. The figure bot move function returns the block number. So for example, if the bot has evaluated that the bot should have made the move over here, it will output that block number 4. So put the cross in block number 4. But in our list, it is saved as 0, 1, 2, 3. So we will add a -1 here so that it calls the correct block in our list. Then we will just simply check whether our block is free. This.ts.block bot selected free, and if the block is free, we will then make the bot turn. So we will just simply call the player click class and just make the move. Okay, so for example, if the AI selected block is not free, it will rerun the function so that it comes up with the right solution in the end. Okay, so now we will populate the player click method and update it. So right now is that our player click is not able to determine whether the game set is completed, and whether to change the turn or not. So for example, if the bot clicks, it is not able to determine that the game is complete, and it has to reset the game again, and it is also not able to determine whether the block set is complete and the player 1 is winner. So what we will do is we will first add some variable here that will check whether the game is complete. So we will just call our block set complete method, if the game is complete, that is the part, the block set is complete, it will add the score of the user, and it will notify the the player that it is the winner. Remember, I mentioned it to you that we will use a snake bar Angular material component to notify the player. Right now you will see that it is throwing an error that it doesn't exist. So what we will do is we will add a class name ng-snakebar in import, and we will hit save. So the problem is gone. Okay, we also have to inject this this ng-snakebar into our constructor. In order to do that, I will add a public method called snakebar, which will inject the snakebar class. So that's it. So we will just now see, so in case our game is complete, it will add the score of the player that have won the match, and also it will let us know, which player has won the match. But in case that the game is not complete, it will simply change the turn. The code, we will add a variable to our app component, a name. We'll remove the title and we'll add a variable named lock. The primary function of this lock method is that it will lock the player click. So in case if the player 1, if there is a bot turn, the player 1 will not be able to click the board, and it's the same as for the computer. So in case of a player, it's the turn of player. If there's a turn of block, the player will not be able to make the turn, and vice versa. So I will add some code in player click class, that will refrain the player from clicking. So what it will do is it will first check whether the block is free, and if the block is free, it will. If the block is not free, it will just simply return and will not do further action. And similarly, if the player turn is locked, it will do no action. Then I will add a what I will do is there is in our game service there was a variable named free blocks remaining. We will just reduce it by 1. So whenever the player click or bot click, it will reduce this by 1. So I will add a line of code that will simply make it reduce by -1, and then I will do a check whether the free blocks are remaining, and if there are no free blocks remaining, and and none of the player has able to complete the set, it will simply increase the draw score, and it will mark the game as draw. Okay, we will also add a class named ng-game. The function of this ng-game will be that it will reset everything. So it will reset as you have opened the game for the first time. So it will make the free blocks remaining as 9. it will reinitialize the blocks, make them all free. It will set the lock as false so that the player 1 can able to click the blocks, and it will set the turn to players 1. Okay, and we will add a new class called a new method named reset game. The primary function of reset game will be that it will reset all the scores to 0, and will reload the game. So what we will do, what we have done is we have checked the free blocks remaining, and based on it, if there are no free blocks remaining, we will make the match as draw, and then we will add a new instance of this.new game. Whenever one of the player is marked as winner, it will create a new game, and it will add up the score. So we will now run the game and see how it's working. We'll run some tests now. So we will play a few games, and we will complete the block. Oh, we won the game, and we will now try to player 2 win. So it's working good. Now we will add the scores on the right side. To do that, we will switch to our add component.html file, and then in here we will add some code. So I will just quickly copy and paste the code here. So basically what it is doing is it will showing the player 1 score by accessing the JS, our game service, and accessing player 1 and getting its score. Similarly, it is getting the computer bot score here, and in our game services we have a draw score variable that populates the draw score. So we are calling it. Once we will hit save, we will see by default it is 0, 0, 0. Now let's play and we will see how it's working. So computer won the game 1. And we won the game. Now we will try to make the draw. So we see the code is working perfectly. We will now just add a button, that will reset our game so that the score is set to 0. In order to do that, we will add a single button, a href, and it will reset game. Let's call it new game. We will add a click handler that will reset the game, and its class will be a bootstrap button class, so it will button and danger. So we will hit save and then we will see how this is our button now. So yeah, so we will try to quickly run the game. So the score is 2. We will now hit new game and you will see it will reset the scores to 0. So that's it. Let me know how you do you like the tutorial, and if you have any question, post in the comments below or on my website. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Click on the link and get subscribed to my channel. Thank you.